The message came through on every human channel at once. Commander Velkoth of the Zathran Confederation appeared on screens across 8 human colony worlds, his 4 eyes gleaming with contempt. His translator rendered his words in flat, emotionless tones. Humans of the Kelsier sector, you occupy space that belongs to the Zathran Confederation by ancient right. We claimed these stars 10,000 years before your species learned to make fire. You will evacuate all settlements within 72 hours. Take only what you can carry. Everything else becomes ours. Governor Maria Santos watched the broadcast from New Prosperity's command center. Around her, the staff sat in stunned silence. New Prosperity wasn't just a mining outpost. It was home to 2 million people, families, schools, lives built over 3 generations. He can't be serious, someone whispered. But Velkoth wasn't finished. We know your kind, humans. You talk of peace while you spread like parasites across the galaxy. You are children playing at civilization. You have no history, no honor, no understanding of true warfare. If you refuse our generous offer, we will educate you. 300 warships stand ready to cleanse these worlds. Choose wisely, primitives. The transmission ended. Maria immediately contacted Earth's diplomatic corps. Within hours, Ambassador Chen stood before the Galactic Council, humanity's case prepared. The council chamber held representatives from 47 species, some so old they remembered when Earth's sun was young. Chen spoke carefully. The Zathran claim ancient rights to territory humans legally purchased from the Vex Commonwealth 70 years ago. We have documents, treaties, payment records. Documents mean nothing, Velkoth interrupted, his massive form dominating the Zathran delegation. Might determines ownership. This is galactic law as old as space itself. The strong take, the weak surrender. This is how civilization functions. The council's speaker, an ancient being called the Eldest, regarded both parties with eyes that had witnessed millennia. The Zathran claim is recognized under the right of power doctrine. Humanity may contest this through combat or yield the territory. These are your options. Chen felt his stomach drop. The right of power was a relic from darker ages, but it remained valid law. Species who could defend their claims kept them. Those who couldn't lost everything. We request time to consider. 72 hours, Velkoth said. The countdown has already begun. The Galactic Council chambers buzzed with conversation as the session ended. Most species assumed humanity would back down. Humans were traders, explorers, scientists. They'd been in space for only 200 years. They'd never fought a major war against another species. Every territorial dispute they'd faced, they'd negotiated or abandoned. Chen returned to his ship and opened a secure channel to Earth. The Security Council appeared on his screen, their faces grim. They're not bluffing, Chen said. 300 warships. The Zathran have conquered 17 species. They're considered a mid-tier military power, but they're experienced. We've got colony militia and some defense platforms. We can't win this. General Patricia Okonkwo leaned forward. Can't we negotiate? I tried. They want humiliation, not compromise. To them, we're insects. Annoying insects they want to step on to prove a point to the galaxy. Silence filled the channel. Then Admiral James Park spoke, his voice quiet. So we evacuate? 8 colonies. 23 million people total. We'd have 72 hours to move them all. It's impossible, someone said. Then some will die. Velkoth would say that's our fault for being weak. The Security Council debated for 18 hours. Evacuation plans were drafted. Ships were redirected. The news spread across human space, and the reactions surprised everyone. No panic, no despair. Instead, something cold and hard settled over humanity. On New Prosperity, Maria Santos received calls from every settlement. We're not leaving, they said, one after another. This is our home. Volunteer militia units swelled overnight. Retired military veterans came out of retirement. Factories retooled to produce weapons. It wasn't bravado. It was something deeper. Something the galaxy didn't understand about humans. They'd been pushed before. They remembered. 60 hours into the countdown, Ambassador Chen received new instructions from Earth. He requested another council session. Velkoth attended, expecting to hear surrender terms. Chen stood before the assembled galaxy. The United Earth government has reviewed the Zathran ultimatum. We have consulted our people. We have considered our options. He paused, meeting Velkoth's 4 eyes directly. Ultimatum rejected. The chamber erupted. Velkoth's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. You choose extinction? So be it. Not extinction. Chen said quietly. You gave us a choice, Commander. Surrender or combat? We choose combat. You have chosen war. He pulled out a data pad and read from it. I am instructed to deliver the following message. You wanted to teach us our place. Stand by, class is about to begin. We'll show you how this is done. Velkoth laughed, a harsh clicking sound. Brave words from a species that's never won a war. Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We've never fought a war in space, Commander. That doesn't mean we don't know how. He turned to address the entire council. Humanity formally declares a state of war against the Zathran Confederation. We will observe all galactic conventions regarding civilian populations and prisoners. We expect the same courtesy. You'll receive no courtesy from me, human. Only a quick death if you're lucky. Then you've made your choice too, Chen said. Good luck, Commander. You're going to need it. The transmission ended. Across human space, evacuation ships launched, but not in retreat. They carried civilians away from the colonies. Yes, but they also carried something else, weapons, soldiers, and 200 years of pent-up frustration at being treated like children by species who'd forgotten what real warfare looked like. The Zathran fleet began moving toward human space. Confident and unstoppable, they had no idea what was coming. The Zathran invasion fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kelsier system. 300 warships, their hulls decorated with the conquest marks of 17 defeated species. Commander Velkoth stood on his flagship's bridge, watching the displays with satisfaction. Scan for human defenses, he ordered, detecting minimal presence. Commander, his sensor officer reported. A few orbital platforms around New Prosperity. Some small patrol craft. Nothing that could threaten us, as expected. These humans talk bravely but act like cowards. Begin the approach. Battle formation. Let them see what real power looks like. The fleet moved toward New Prosperity like a hammer descending on an egg. Velkoth had fought this kind of campaign dozens of times. The prey species would fire a few desperate shots, then surrender when they realized resistance was futile. Then would come the humiliating occupation, the tribute payments, the broken spirits. It was almost boring, but as they approached weapons range, something unexpected happened. Commander, the human platforms are powering down. The patrol craft are withdrawing. They flee already? Pathetic. No, sir, they're not fleeing. They're landing on the planet. All human ships are descending to the surface. Velkoth frowned. That made no sense. Are they trying to use the planet as a shield? Unknown, Commander. The Zathran fleet entered orbit unopposed. Velkoth ordered attack runs on the defense platforms, but they were already cold metal. Their reactors shut down, their weapons disabled. His ships destroyed them anyway for the principle of it. Launch ground forces. Take the capital city. Troop carriers descended through New Prosperity's atmosphere. Velkoth watched through the camera feeds as his soldiers marched through empty streets. The city was intact. Power still ran. Water still flowed. But there were no humans anywhere. They evacuated, his ground commander reported. Recent evacuation within the last day. The settlement is ours, but there's nothing to conquer. The same report came from all 8 colony worlds. Humans had evacuated completely, taking only people and leaving everything else behind. City stood empty but functional. Mines sat idle but undamaged. It was eerie, cowards, Velkoth said. They abandoned everything rather than fight. His second-in-command, a veteran named Korthax, looked troubled. This seems too easy, Commander. Because it is easy. The humans are weak. Announce to the galaxy that we have claimed these worlds without firing a shot. Let everyone see humanity's humiliation. Velkoth's broadcast went out across the galactic networks. The Zathran had won. Humanity had run. It seemed like the end of the story. It was actually just the beginning. The first supply convoy arrived 3 days later. 5 cargo ships escorted by 2 warships carrying food, ammunition, and relief crews for the occupation forces. They never reached New Prosperity. The convoy was passing through the Helios belt, a dense asteroid field, when the attack came. Small human ships, barely frigate-sized, appeared from behind asteroids, fired missiles, and disappeared before the Zathran could react. The cargo ships exploded. The warships gave chase, but the human raiders were too fast, too maneuverable. They vanished into the asteroids like fish into coral. A minor setback, Velkoth announced. Pirates, nothing more. But it happened again. And again. Every convoy sent to resupply the occupation forces faced attack. Some made it through. Most didn't. The raiders never stood and fought. They hit and ran, using the terrain, using speed, never giving the Zathran a chance to bring their superior firepower to bear. 2 weeks into the occupation, Velkoth's ground commanders began reporting problems. Food supplies were running low. Ammunition was being rationed. The equipment the humans had left behind was sabotaged in subtle ways. Machines that worked for a week then broke down. Water purification systems that failed. Power plants that overloaded. Request emergency resupply, the ground commander on New Prosperity reported. Our troops are on half rations. Velkoth felt the first stirring of unease. This wasn't how conquest worked. The occupied territory was supposed to support the occupation. Instead, his forces were stranded on worlds that looked functional, but were slowly becoming traps. Increase convoy escorts. Send hunting parties to clear those raiders. The hunting parties found nothing but empty space and destroyed ships. The raiders knew every asteroid, every moon, every hiding place. They struck and vanished like ghosts. Then came the second lesson. A transmission reached Velkoth from Zathran's Central Command. Commander, we have a situation. Human forces have attacked the Belvaris refineries. Velkoth felt his blood chill. Belvaris was 3 sectors away from the occupied colonies. It was deep in Zathran territory, far from the war zone. The refineries there processed fuel for half the Confederation's fleet. That's impossible. All human forces are in this sector, harassing our convoys. He stopped. Slowly, horribly, he understood. It was a diversion, Commander. The raiders, they weren't trying to stop us. They were keeping us busy while their real forces moved elsewhere. He pulled up strategic maps, seeing the situation with new eyes. How many ships hit Belvaris? Estimated 50 human vessels, heavy cruiser class. They struck the refineries and the supply depots. Estimated 30% of our sector fuel reserves are burning. 50 ships. While Velkoth had been chasing frigates around asteroids, humanity had sent a real fleet to strike where it would hurt most. He'd been played. Pull back fleet elements from the occupation. We need to secure Belvaris and additional reports coming in, Commander. Human forces have struck mining operations at Thorax 4. Raiding parties have hit 3 logistics stations in the outer reach. A human battle group has been spotted near. The reports kept coming. Humans were everywhere suddenly, hitting targets across Zathran space. Small raids, large raids, each one carefully chosen to disrupt, delay, and damage. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that would trigger a major counteroffensive. Just steady, professional bleeding of Zathran capability. Korthax looked at the tactical display in horror. Commander, how are they doing this? They're a young species. They should be disorganized. They should be easy to predict. Velkoth stared at the map, red icons marking human attacks across a dozen systems. He thought about Ambassador Chen's final words. Class is about to begin. They've been studying warfare, Velkoth said quietly. Not for decades. For millennia. On their homeworld. Against each other. He remembered humanity's history files, which he'd barely glanced at. Thousands of years of wars. Continuous, brutal, innovative warfare. They didn't learn war from conquering others. They learned it from fighting themselves. They've been preparing for this their entire existence. What do we do? Velkoth looked at his stranded occupation forces, his burning supply lines, his scattered fleet trying to defend too many targets at once. We adapt, we learn, or we lose. For the first time in his long military career, Velkoth realized he was facing an enemy who knew more about war than he did. The lesson had begun. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session 6 weeks into the war. The chamber buzzed with nervous energy. What had seemed like a simple conquest had turned into something no one had predicted. The eldest called the session to order. We gather to address the escalating conflict between humanity and the Zathran Confederation. Commander Velkoth has requested assistance under the Mutual Defense Accords. He claims humanity has violated the rules of civilized warfare. Velkoth stood, his appearance markedly different from his confident broadcast weeks earlier. His armor showed wear. His eyes held something that looked like exhaustion. The humans fight without honor. They attack civilian targets. They refuse to meet us in proper battle. They are savages who must be stopped before they threaten all civilized species. Ambassador Chen rose to respond. May I present evidence? The council agreed. Chen displayed footage from the war. Zathran supply depots burning, mining stations evacuated and disabled. But notably, The footage showed human forces helping Zathran civilian workers escape before attacking infrastructure. Medical stations left untouched. Prisoner camps where captured Zathran soldiers received better care than their own military provided. "These are the savages you fear?" Chen asked. "Every target we've struck has been legitimate military infrastructure. Every civilian we've encountered has been treated according to galactic law. Every prisoner has been fed, housed, and given medical care." He paused. "Compare this to Commander Velkoth's invasion, where he threatened to cleanse worlds containing 2 million humans. Where his soldiers occupied our cities and lived off supplies meant for our people." Velkoth's mandibles clicked in anger. "You refuse to fight properly. You hide and strike from shadows. You attack targets far from the combat zone. This is not warfare. This is terrorism." "No," said a new voice. Admiral Rachel Kensington walked into the council chamber, her uniform crisp, her bearing calm. "This is warfare. Real warfare. What you practice, Commander, is ritual combat, dressed up as military action." The council murmured. It was rare for military commanders to address them directly. Kensington continued. "The Zathran military tradition is 10,000 years old, impressive. But in those 10,000 years, how has warfare changed for you? You still fight fleet-to-fleet battles. You still occupy territory and expect it to support your forces. You still believe victory comes from overwhelming force applied directly." She smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "Humanity developed past that stage thousands of years ago." "Impossible," Velkoth said. "You're a young species on young in space, ancient in warfare." Kensington activated a holographic display. "Let me educate you, Commander. This is Sun Tzu, a human military philosopher from 2,500 years ago. He wrote, 'All warfare is based on deception. When able to attack, appear unable. When using your forces, appear inactive.' Does that sound familiar?" Velkoth said nothing. "This is Clausewitz, another human thinker from 200 years ago. He wrote about total war, logistics as strategy, and the importance of political objectives in military action. This is Mahan, who theorized about controlling supply lines and strategic positions rather than just fighting battles." The display showed dozens more names, concepts, doctrines. "We've been studying war, refining it, perfecting it for our entire existence. Not against aliens, against each other." "Do you know what that means?" The council was silent. "It means we face the most dangerous opponent in the galaxy, ourselves. Humans are adaptable, creative, and vicious when threatened. We've spent millennia fighting enemies who think like we do, who innovate as fast as we do, who refuse to give up. We've developed warfare into a science." Kensington's voice hardened. "You wanted to teach primitives their place. Instead, you gave us an excuse to show the galaxy what humans really are." A council member from the Vex Commonwealth spoke up. "Are you threatening us, Admiral?" "No, I'm explaining reality. The Zathran attacked us. They humiliated our diplomats. They threatened our civilians. Under galactic law, we have the right to defend ourselves. We're doing exactly that, using every method we've learned over thousands of years of warfare." "But you're winning," the Vex representative said quietly, "against a species that has conquered 17 others. Because we're better at this than they are. Not stronger, not more numerous, better, more experienced, more innovative." Kensington looked directly at Velkoth. "You studied war as an art form, something done for honor and glory. We industrialized it. We turned it into a tool for survival. That's the difference." Velkoth stood abruptly. "You cannot be allowed to continue. If you defeat us, what's to stop you from conquering others?" Chen answered that. "The same thing that stopped us for 200 years. We don't want to. We came to space looking for peace, trade, and cooperation. You forced this war on us. We'll finish it, then go back to being traders and explorers. But we'll remember who taught us that peace isn't enough, that in this galaxy the strong survive and the weak are conquered." "Pretty words," Velkoth said, "but I don't believe you." "Then watch what happens next," Kensington said coldly. 3 days later, a Zathran patrol captured a human merchant vessel in neutral space. The ship was carrying medical supplies marked for civilian hospitals. According to galactic law, it should have been immune from attack. The Zathran commander, frustrated by weeks of losses, destroyed it anyway. All 37 crew members died. The video reached human command within hours. Admiral Kensington watched it in silence, her face carved from stone. Then she turned to her staff. "The accords have been violated. We're no longer bound by our restraints. Send the order. Operation Reckoning is authorized. Across human space, ships received new orders. The rules of engagement changed. The gloves came off. The Zathran fleet guarding their core systems detected the incoming human forces and moved to intercept. Finally, they thought a proper battle, fleet against fleet, the way war should be fought. They were partly right. It was a fleet battle, but nothing about it was proper. The human fleet appeared to be running, drawing the Zathran into the Therax Nebula. Velkoth ordered pursuit. His sensors showed the humans clearly, even through the nebula's interference. He ordered his fleet to attack formation. Too late, he realized the truth. The sensor readings were decoys, automated drones broadcasting false signals. The real human fleet was somewhere else in the nebula, invisible to Zathran sensors but perfectly visible to human instruments designed specifically to operate in this environment. The humans had sacrificed 24 ships earlier in the war, sending them through the nebula, testing it, learning how to use it. Those ships had been bait, drawing Zathran attention while the real research happened. Now they used that knowledge. The Therax ambush lasted 12 hours. Human ships appeared from the nebula, fired and vanished. Zathran vessels burned. Escape was impossible. The humans controlled every exit. Reinforcements couldn't help. They couldn't even see the battle clearly through the interference. When it ended, 2/3 of the Zathran core fleet was destroyed. The rest limped home, damaged and demoralized. Velkoth survived, but barely. His flagship was a wreck. Across the Galactic Council chambers, species who had dismissed humanity as insignificant began making quiet inquiries about treaties and trade agreements. If these young primitives could do this to the Zathran, what could they do to others? The Zathran Confederation, proud and ancient, faced a truth they'd never imagined. They were losing a war to a species they'd considered beneath notice, and the humans weren't finished teaching them yet. The Therax Nebula battle broke something in the Zathran Confederation. Not just their fleet, though, that was shattered. Something deeper. The certainty that they were superior, that their way of war was correct, that their ancient traditions guaranteed victory. In the wreckage of his flagship, Commander Velkoth reviewed the battle recordings for the 100th time. He watched his fleet walk into the trap, watched his ships die while they fired at shadows, watched human vessels dance through the nebula like they owned it. They prepared this, Korthax said quietly. He'd survived too, though his ship had barely made it home. The ships we destroyed weeks ago, the ones we thought were easy victories in the nebula, they were studying it, learning it. They sacrificed those crews just to gather data. Humans value individual lives above almost anything, Velkoth said. Their culture emphasizes personal freedom, individual rights. How can they sacrifice so easily? Maybe they value survival of their species more. Korthax pulled up human historical files. Look at this. A battle called Thermopylae. 300 humans held off an army of hundreds of thousands, knowing they would die. They did it to buy time for their people. A battle called Stalingrad. Millions died defending a single city. The humans didn't retreat. They fought until they won. Velkoth felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Fear. We've been fighting a species that's willing to die to win. No, Commander. We've been fighting a species that's willing to die to survive. There's a difference. Reports flooded in from across Zathran space. Human forces had broken through the defensive lines. They moved fast now, no longer playing the long game. Strikes came against shipyards, training facilities, command centers. The humans had been holding back, Velkoth realized. All those weeks of raids and harassment, they'd been gathering intelligence, weakening defenses, setting up the killing blow. The Confederation's subject species sensed weakness. Rebellions erupted on a dozen worlds. Species that the Zathran had conquered and held through force suddenly saw an opportunity. If the mighty Zathran could be beaten, maybe they could be free. The Confederation's leadership called for Velkoth to return to the capital. He went, expecting to face punishment. Instead, they gave him supreme command of what remained of their military. End this war, they ordered. Whatever it takes. Velkoth gathered his remaining ships. 97 vessels, all that remained of the once proud fleet. He knew where the human main force was. They'd stopped hiding. They sat in the Kelsier system, orbiting New Prosperity. Waiting. They want us to attack them there, Korthax warned. It's obvious, I know. But we have no choice. We attack or we surrender. Those are our only options left. The Zathran fleet entered Kelsier space in battle formation. The human fleet waited in orbit, 43 ships. The Zathran outnumbered them more than 2-1. For the first time in weeks, the odds favored Velkoth. All ships, attack formation. We end this now. The fleets closed. Weapons charged. Then Admiral Kensington's voice came over open channels. Commander Velkoth, before we start, I want you to understand something. More human tricks? No tricks. Just truth. You're about to lose this battle. Not because we outnumber you, we don't. Not because our ships are better, they're not. You're going to lose because you still don't understand what you're fighting. Your arrogance will... Look at your sensor displays, Commander. Really look, Velkoth checked his sensors. The human fleet showed 43 ships. But there was something odd about the readings. Slight variations, inconsistencies. Then he understood. Decoys. Some of those ships are decoys. Some, but which ones? And where are the real ships? Kensington's voice was calm. Behind you, alarms screamed. Velkoth's sensors lit up with new contacts. Human ships dropping out of FTL, appearing from hyperspace directly behind his fleet. Not 43 ships, 80. And they were positioned perfectly for a killing strike. You let us track you, Velkoth said. You wanted us to know where you were. We gave you hope. Let you think you could win with superior numbers. Made you desperate enough to gamble everything on one attack. Then we sprang the trap. Kensington paused. This is how it's done, Commander. You don't just fight battles. You manipulate your enemy into fighting the battle you want, where you want, when you want. The battle began. But it wasn't really a battle, it was an execution. The human fleet had every advantage, position, numbers, surprise. The Zathran fought bravely, but bravery wasn't enough. Ships died. Escape vectors were blocked. Velkoth's fleet was surrounded. All ships emergency retreat. Break through the... His tactical officer interrupted. Commander, we're receiving a transmission. The humans are offering terms. Surrender terms. Ceasefire terms. They want us to stop fighting. They promise to let our surviving ships withdraw if we agree to negotiate peace. Velkoth looked at his tactical display. 23 ships left of his 97. In another hour, maybe less, they'd all be destroyed. But the humans were offering to let them go. Why? Kensington's voice came again. You're wondering why we're not finishing you. Simple, we don't want to. We never wanted this war, Commander. You forced it on us. We fought it because we had to. But we don't enjoy killing. We're not like you. You've butchered my fleet. We've defeated your fleet. There's a difference. Your wounded are being picked up by our medical ships right now. Your escape pods are being collected. Your prisoners are being treated according to galactic law. We're good at war, Commander, but we're also good at mercy. Velkoth felt anger, shame, and something else, respect. What are your terms? Immediate ceasefire. Your ships withdraw to Zathran space. Peace talks begin within 1 week. The terms will be harsh, Commander. You started this war. You threatened genocide. You broke galactic law by attacking our civilian vessels. You'll pay for that. But you'll survive. Your people will survive. That's more than you offered us. The choice was simple. Keep fighting and lose everything. Or accept terms and save something. Velkoth made the only decision he could. Ceasefire accepted. We withdraw. The human ships parted, creating a corridor for the Zathran survivors to escape. As his damaged flagship limped toward friendly space, Velkoth watched the human fleet on his sensors. They could pursue. They could finish the job. They chose not to. They fight like demons but show mercy like saints, Korthak said. What kind of species is this? Velkoth remembered Kensington's words. One that understands warfare better than we ever will. They don't fight for glory or honor. They fight to end the fighting. To survive. To protect what's theirs. What do we tell the Confederation? The truth, we lost. The humans won, and we're fortunate they're willing to let us surrender instead of destroying us completely. Behind them, the human fleet secured the Kelsier system. On New Prosperity, lights began coming back on in the empty cities. Ships descended carrying colonists coming home. The war wasn't quite over. There would be negotiations, terms, consequences, but the fighting was done. Humanity had proven its point. The galaxy would never underestimate them again. Commander Velkoth had learned his lesson. He just wished it hadn't cost so much. 2 years after the war ended, the Galactic Council gathered for its annual assembly. The chamber looked the same as always, but everything had changed. The Zathran delegation sat in the back, their once proud warriors now quiet and subdued. And in the front, occupying a seat of honor, sat Ambassador Chen and Admiral Kensington representing humanity. The eldest called the session to order. We gather to review the state of galactic civilization. Much has changed since our last assembly. The human delegation has requested to address the council. We grant this request. Chen stood, but it was Kensington who spoke. She'd become humanity's voice in military matters, respected and feared in equal measure. 2 years ago, the Zathran Confederation attacked humanity without provocation. They assumed we were weak because we were young. They learned otherwise. Today, I want to talk about what that means for all of us. The council listened. They had no choice. Human ships now patrolled trade routes across 3 sectors. Human technology was being studied by every military in the galaxy. Human tactics were taught in officer academies from a dozen different species. Humanity didn't want war. We spent 200 years trying to earn our place through peace, through trade, through culture and cooperation. We believed that in space, we could be better than we were on Earth. Kensington's voice held genuine sadness. But you saw our restraint as weakness. You mistook our desire for peace as inability to fight. The Zathran aren't the only ones. We've been dismissed, cheated, and bullied by supposedly civilized species since we left Earth. Uncomfortable shifting around the chamber. Every species there had at some point taken advantage of humanity's inexperience. The Zathran taught us an important lesson. Peace only works when everyone respects it. Civilization only functions when strength backs up diplomacy. We won't forget that lesson. Kensington pulled up historical data. These are human military academies. Before the war, we had 12. Now we have 43. Our fleet was defensive. Now it's offensive. We didn't want to become a military power. You forced us to be one. A representative from the Vex Commonwealth spoke. Are you threatening us, Admiral? No, I'm explaining reality. Humanity is now a major military power. We earned that status through blood and victory. But unlike some species, we remember what it's like to be weak, to be dismissed, to be threatened. She looked directly at the Vex representative. We'll never let that happen to us again. And we'll protect other species from experiencing it too. Chen stood beside her. The Galactic Council offered humanity a permanent seat. We accept. With conditions. First, the right of power doctrine is abolished. No species can claim territory through military threats alone. Second, the mutual defense accords are reformed. Young species get protection, not exploitation. Third, a common military code is established. Rules of war that everyone follows. Those are significant changes, the eldest said. They're necessary changes. The old system allowed the Zathran to threaten genocide. It allowed species to be conquered and enslaved. It created the conditions for war. We're proposing a better way. Debate raged for hours. Some species objected, others supported. In the end, humanity's recent victory spoke louder than any argument. The reforms passed. Not unanimously, but enough. After the session ended, Velkoth approached Kensington. He moved stiffly. Injuries from the war still troubled him. He no longer commanded fleets. Now he taught at the Zathran Military Academy, helping rebuild their shattered military tradition. Admiral, may I speak with you? Commander. Kensington nodded respectfully. Former enemies, now cautious colleagues. I've been studying human military history as you suggested during the war. It's humbling. You're learning. That's more than many species would do. I wanted to apologize. For my arrogance. For threatening your people. For starting a war that cost thousands of lives. Kensington studied him. Are you apologizing because you lost or because you genuinely regret what you did? Velkoth considered the question carefully. At first, I regretted losing. Now, I regret starting it. I watch recordings of the peace negotiations, the terms you imposed on us. You could have destroyed the Confederation. Instead, you helped rebuild it. You sent advisors to help reform our military. You shared medical technology. Why? Because peace is better than victory. We won the war. Now we have to win the peace. Kensington's expression softened slightly. You want to know the real secret of human warfare, Commander? It's not our tactics or our technology. It's that we remember war is a failure. We're good at it because we've done it so much, but we hate it. Every human military academy teaches the same first lesson. The best victory is the one you don't have to fight for. Then why develop such devastating capabilities? Because we've learned that strength prevents war, weakness invites it. On Earth we had a saying, if you want peace, prepare for war. We prepared. When you attacked, we were ready. She paused. But we also prepared for peace. That's why we're helping rebuild the Confederation instead of occupying it. Velkoth nodded slowly. Your people are strange. You fight like you want to destroy us. Then you treat us like allies. We fight to end the fighting. Once the war is over, former enemies can become friends. It's happened before in human history. Countries that slaughtered each other became partners. That's what we want here. A galaxy where species cooperate because they respect each other, not because they fear each other. A noble goal. I hope you achieve it. We will. Because now the galaxy knows what happens if they force us to fight. We don't just win wars, Commander. We change the rules so those wars don't happen again. In the Zathran Re-Education Facility, a name that made some species nervous, but which was actually just a school, former Zathran officers learned new ways of thinking about warfare. Human instructors taught concepts like proportional response, rules of engagement, and treatment of prisoners. They studied Earth's history, learning how humans had slowly developed laws of war to limit suffering. One instructor, a retired human colonel, addressed a class of Zathran officers. You're wondering why we teach you this? Why we're helping former enemies? Simple answer, because we want you to be better enemies if we ever fight again. The Zathran looked confused. War will happen. Species will have conflicts. But if everyone understands and follows the same rules, war becomes less brutal. Fewer civilians die. Prisoners get treated humanely. When the war ends, peace becomes possible. The colonel pulled up images from Earth's bloodiest wars. Humans learned this the hard way. We fought wars so terrible they nearly destroyed us. Wars where civilians were targeted, where prisoners were murdered, where entire populations were slaughtered. We decided never again. These rules, these laws, they're written in our blood. You share this knowledge with us? A Zathran officer asked. Make us better warriors? We make you more civilized warriors. There's a difference. A civilized warrior is harder to beat because they're disciplined and moral, but they're also easier to make peace with because they understand limits. That's what we want. A galaxy of civilized warriors who fight when necessary, but prefer peace when possible. The lessons spread, not just to the Zathran, but to other species who realized their own military doctrines needed updating. Human concepts like winning hearts and minds and strategic patience became common topics in alien military academies. The galaxy was learning from humanity's long, bloody education in warfare. On New Prosperity, life returned to normal. The empty cities filled again. Children played in parks that had been evacuated during the war. Maria Santos, now elected governor officially, looked out over her city and felt profound relief. They'd survived. Their homes were intact. The war was over. But above the planet, human warships remained on patrol. Not many, just enough to remind everyone that New Prosperity was protected, that humanity had the capability and will to defend its people. Ambassador Chen and Admiral Kensington stood in the council observation deck, watching stars and ships through the viewport. Do you think it will last? Chen asked. The peace? For a while, until someone forgets the lessons and needs to be taught again. Kensington smiled grimly, but each time more species will remember. Eventually, maybe the galaxy will learn what we learned. That war is a waste. That cooperation is stronger than conflict. That survival means working together. And if they don't learn, then we'll still be here. Still ready, still able to defend ourselves and our allies. Kensington turned from the viewport. We didn't ask to be warriors, Chen. We asked to be explorers and traders. But we're good at adaptation. If the galaxy needs warriors who understand peace, we can be that. The Zathran chose war, Chen said quietly, and we taught them how it's done. Now we teach them how peace is done. That's the complete lesson. War and peace. Victory and mercy, strength and kindness, Kensington headed for the door. The galaxy thought we were primitives. Now they know better. We're not primitives. We're survivors, and we'll do whatever it takes to keep surviving, including building a better, more peaceful galaxy. Chen watched her go, then turned back to the stars. 200 years ago, humanity had left Earth full of hope and optimism. The galaxy had tested that hope, exploited that optimism, but humanity had passed the test, not by becoming conquerors, but by becoming exactly what was needed, strong enough to defend themselves, wise enough to be merciful, and experienced enough to know the difference. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. More importantly, humanity would never again underestimate the necessity of strength. They'd learned. They'd taught. And they'd changed the galaxy forever. The lesson was complete.